Hey everyone, welcome back to the American Justice Podcast Q&A. How's everybody doing? Look, we're in the same room.
Whoa, where did you come from?
Dallas. Man, it feels weird being in the same room with somebody again. I feel like I've been in prison now for 2 months.
I know. Now I can actually look over and instead of looking this way to look at the computer screen, now I'm looking this way to see you live.
That's crazy. It's crazy. But what is this miraculous feat of two people sitting next to each other in the same room? Tell me about it.
Well, basically, I've never really had a problem with, coming from the healthcare field. This is my quote unquote expert opinion. I've actually never had a problem with small, intimate gatherings, because there's a thing that's called contact tracing, which basically means that if you are in contact with somebody and that person becomes sick for whatever reason, then you are to go back and trace all of the people that they've had contact with. So let's say, for example, that you come over here and we're both fine. We're both no fever, no coughing, no sneezing, none of that stuff. But then let's say 2 days later, all of a sudden you come down with a fever, you start coughing, you go to the doctor, you get tested, all of a sudden, bam, you got COVID-19.
The Rona.
So it's a lot easier to go back and say, let's see, over the last 2 weeks, I've only had contact with Scott, a couple people at work, and my wife and my son. That's about it. So then we can go back and we can trace all those people back and go back and test them. Say, hey, you need to be quarantined because you were in contact with somebody that had COVID-19. It's kind of hard to do that when you're in Walmart and there's 500 people walking around you without a mask.
That is true. That is also disgusting, but it's true. Disgusting and true.
How many times have you seen somebody sitting there coughing and sneezing and not covering their mouth and not? It happens all the time. So it's difficult to do that, and that's the reason that we had to quarantine. I never really had a problem with, again, the intimate gatherings. If somebody wants to come over and have dinner with you or something like that. I don't think that we actually ever needed to be 100% quarantined, but we definitely needed to be secluded from the masses, shutting down the concerts and the baseball games and all that stuff was definitely necessary. But now I think we're at the point where it's kind of okay to be around each other, just we're still not to the point where we need to be around the masses without precautions.
Right. Mud wrestling is right out.
No, I stopped that right in the middle of March.
Yes, we draw the line at mud wrestling. So this is the Q&A episode for good old episode 12. What are we calling this? Are we calling this the mid-season mid-season finale, mid-season break?
The mid-season break, finale, hiatus, whatever you want to call it.
It's a break for the listeners, not necessarily a break for us. We're going to be busy as hell, man.
Definitely not for us. No, we've got we got a lot of work to do.
A lot of work.
Maybe we should let's just take 3 weeks off.
3 weeks?
And then we'll come back.
3 weeks is good.
And then we'll come back and say, hey, we didn't do anything for 3 weeks, so we need another 2 weeks.
Whatever. Is 3 weeks going to be enough? That's the question.
No, we're going to try to get all of the rest, or at least a majority of the rest of the episodes written, in addition to getting the new production team, the marketing team, everything that we're adding to the behind the scenes that you guys don't see.
Yes, and you guys are the one responsible for this jump in production as well. So Give yourself a nice round of applause. We couldn't have done it without you guys.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The response has been amazing.
By proxy, we just gave the world the clap. Did you see that?
We both did.
Got it coming from both directions.
And we're sitting right next to each other.
Right. Let's do a little Q&A, shall we? For episode 12, the Michelle Lee interview.
Is this our once a week Q&A?
This is it. This is our once a week Q&A.
Our once a week Q&A that we only do once a week.
Goes on and on.
Goes on and on. And I need to explain that. By the way, so we know that her name was not Goes On and On. We just like to make fun of people that don't put their real names. So
she was the Energizer Bunny. That's all there is to it.
And we're assuming it was a she. Could have been a he.
All right, let's do a little question for Debbie from Plano. Cue the music.
Debbie from Plano. Thank you, Debbie. Here is your theme song.
Debbie from Plano, she writes in every week. She believes in Brandon's innocence, it's justice that she seeks. We'd love to hear her thoughts, her wrath we won't incur. We need more listeners just like her.
Yes, we do need more listeners.
I think we were really showing. We were showing two things in that portion of this video. Number one, our age and our inability to dance. So
I thought you were going to say how white we were. I mean, because apparently we make fun of all races, so we might as well make fun of the white people too.
Yeah,
so.
that was if anybody out there, any aspiring dancers out there,
do not do what
you were not the worst dancer in the world. You just saw the two worst dancers.
Yes, do not do what we did. Trust me.
Okay. Debbie from Plano asks, do you feel that Michelle Lee was covering for someone or misleading Ranger Collins?
That's a good question. You know, I never really thought of that. I don't, my personal opinion, I don't think that she was covering for anyone. I don't think that she was trying to, I don't think she, covering would infer that she knew who did it or stuff. I don't think so, because the people that a lot of people think did this, she loved Brandon more than she loved them. So, you know, if the shoe was reversed and they were accusing someone else and Brandon had something that looked guilty or whatever, I think she might cover for him, but I don't think that she would cover for anyone else. It just seems like, it just comes across in the video like she's just dinging. I mean, she's just scatterbrained. She goes from one thing to talking to another thing, and her phone rings like 5 times and she doesn't even ever think to like turn the ringer off so she can sit there and talk about a double homicide case. So I think she's just kind of out there. Like, what was your impression of that?
Right. I mean, you know, obviously very, very sweet lady with, you know, the best interest of wholesomeness and goodness in mind. I guess reaching out in to the best of her abilities in what she thinks is helping.
Right.
But no, I don't think, I mean, you know, she saw that the gun was missing for the first time in a year. I'm going to put parentheses around
for the
that.
first time in a year.
They saw that the gun was missing, and she immediately ran to the sheriff's department with the gun belt in hopes that she could do something.
Well, she says that she was bringing it in to try to clear Brandon. I don't know how that would clear him, but that's what she says. But, you know, but I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I have no qualms with her, you know, bringing in the holster and all of that stuff, saying, hey, I noticed that there was a gun missing. The problem is that she didn't report it until after the murders. So, you know, she noticed it on Monday. So if you notice a gun missing from your house, I would think your first thought would be, I need to call the police and report that there's a gun missing. But she didn't do that. And then all of a sudden, 2 days later, a day and a half, 2 days later, she finds out that these 2 people were murdered. And her first thought is, oh my God, there was a gun missing on Monday. You know, so, I mean, I can understand where she's thinking, but I don't understand why she didn't report it.
Right. I mean, my wife and I, we own 2 guns. If one of those guns comes up missing, we're going to know about it because we look at them at least every other day. If you've had a gun missing and you don't know when it went missing, if it was yesterday or if it was last year, chances are you may have too many guns. I'm sure there's a support group or self-help book or something to help you with your gun addiction.
My name is Scott and I'm addicted to guns.
We have 2. I only have 2 hands. I only need 2.
Well, and I get her point that she, you know, that this was just a you know, murder weapon / artwork, but
right.
You know, so it wasn't something like me personally. I always know where my gun is 24/7. If I look somewhere and it's not where I think it's going to be, I start panicking, and I'm like, I've done that a couple times. I left it in my car when I look over on my dresser. I'm like, oh, where's my gun? But and I immediately go to find it. And if I don't find it, if someone did break into my car or stole my gun, the first thing I'm doing is calling the police and saying, because that thing's registered to me.
Right.
I don't know if these replicas had to be registered or not, but either way, you know,
it's
if there's a murder, if there's a double homicide and it comes out that you have a gun missing, there might be some issues.
Right. Yeah. If you don't report a gun stolen right away, and that gun that is registered in your name, especially a handgun, I mean, because they don't bother registering shotguns and rifles, I don't believe.
I don't think so.
But handguns, if your gun is stolen and it's used in a crime, a robbery, a murder, you're in deep shit.
Yeah.
Can I say shit on this podcast? I think we've said shit before. We've just now said it 3 times, so it doesn't matter.
I don't know why you keep saying all this shit.
You're in deep shit. So keep an eye on your guns.
Deep dookie.
Okay. Janine from Price, Utah. I've been to Price, Utah.
Price, Utah.
I've
never been.
Price, middle of nowhere, Utah.
I've never actually been to Utah. I've been to Nevada, like Vegas. I think that borders Utah, right?
Yeah, it does. There's actually a pretty decent city right there at the Nevada-Utah border. I can't remember what it's called, though. I think it's like St. George or St. Cloud or St. somebody. I've spent a lot of time, though, in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City's a nice place to visit. Price, Utah, middle of nowhere, right down Highway 6, which is one of the most dangerous highways in the country.
Really?
Yeah, about midway down it.
Oh my.
And I've done it in a 13-foot, 6-inch tall, 10-speed box truck in a snowstorm at 2 a.m.
Oh my Lanta.
It's not fun. But Janine from Dangerous Price, Utah asks, if the investigators are so hell-bent on the missing gun being the murder weapon, why weren't the Lees charged with being an accessory? That's what we were kind of just discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly a good point, Janine. It's one of those things where if it was proven that this gun was used, then there's a possibility that they could have been, I think. I mean, depending on how far Ranger Collins wanted to push it didn't seem like he really wanted to push anything other than Brandon. But it's one of those things where it's like, I think I said this during the episode. I said, basically, if you're at least complicit, right? You have a gun that's sitting on a shelf that is open to anybody that walks through that house. In addition to that, it's well reported and well known that they don't lock their doors. And they also, one thing we really didn't talk about in this episode is they actually had 2 houses. They have one there in Rockwall, and they also had one in Poetry. And they spent a lot of time at the house in Poetry. So they're, if somebody, let's say close to the family, knew that they were in Poetry, they could just walk on over to the Rockwall house and go grab a gun for themselves. It wasn't locked. It was not, it's just one of those things where it's like, if you have to at least, at least we look at him and say, what the hell were you thinking? At the very most, it's like, a gun that you irresponsibly handled and irresponsibly owned, committed a double homicide. They should at least feel bad, let alone if not have any criminal implications.
Well, they were calling it, I guess, a decoration. They were calling it art. I can't count the number of times I've been to the Dallas Museum of Art and went to see their gun exhibit,
right.
But
or got shot with a piece of art hanging on the wall.
Right. Okay, I can understand. It's a classic weapon. It's a cowboy gun.
Then put it in a case.
Yeah.
That's locked.
we get it. It's a cowboy gun. You hang it on the wall. Okay, fine. Take the firing pin out or weld the cylinder shut. Don't load it.
Right.
My God.
And then just leave it. Or, they make those like acrylic boxes. You could just put it on a nice little stand that has, it kind of sits up and you put a box over it that's sealed or locked somehow.
Okay. If somebody else broke into their house and stole that thing off the wall and he was caught, I'll say we'll pretend it's a he, they would not charge him with theft of property because it's art or a decoration. they would charge him with theft of a firearm because that's exactly what it is.
Correct. So you're saying that it's not art, it's actually a gun.
It is a gun hanging on the wall. End of story.
End of story. I agree. So yes, Janine, I agree with you that, but the problem again is if they can't prove, there's no way to know from the investigation that was done 100% whether or not this was the gun that was used. I personally feel like they should have been able to take some, because they had bullets, Michelle Lee brought him some bullets.
Right.
Why didn't they take the lead out of the bullet and compare it with the lead that they found? That was something that I've always questioned. Why didn't you do that? Why do you, that's something that you would think would be done. But they didn't do that. They just basically had some guy that looked at it and said, yeah, it looks like a 45 to me. What do you think, Bob?
Yee-wee, that's a gun right there.
That's a 45. That's a large caliber.
Ha-ha!
Anyway, so if we could prove that it was used in the murders, then yes, it's possible that they could have some kind of implications. But unfortunately, we don't know 100% that was the murder weapon, even though somebody was convicted for capital murder because they supposedly had access to that murder weapon.
If not, we can at least charge them with being bad art collectors.
Is that a charge in your world?
It is. It is. I work in the fine art industry, and I have for several years now. Yes, that is a art collecting no-no.
Sir, you are being charged with being a bad art collector.
Get up against the wall.
You have a 30 days in art jail.
Yes, that's a bad thing for some people in Dallas. All right, Janine from Price, Utah. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for the question. We're going to take a quick break. We will be right back.
C. Derick Miller is an author, producer, and gonzo journalist from the conservative community of Greenville, Texas. Sam Cloud Miller is a graphic artist and a liberal civil rights activist from Austin, Texas. Combine those two and what do you have? Magic. Recorded in the Bishop Arts District of Dallas, it's a podcast that is sure to never disappoint. They talk about books, film, music, today's topics, and life in general. Even though they may disagree on the topics from time to time, they'll always kiss and make up. It's a practice that America needs to relearn, don't you think? No filters, no scripts, and no schedule. Catch the Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Peace to the peaceful, truth to the masses, hell to the tyrants. Get all the details at cderickmiller.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the American Justice Podcast, Q&A edition for episode 12. We hope everybody out there is staying safe and staying healthy. We've done 2 questions. We have one more question and a comment to go. This one is from John in York, Pennsylvania. I've been there.
Is there any place you haven't been?
Not in the continental United States. I've been everywhere.
That's awesome.
I should be a travel agent.
You really should, especially like domestic travel. Like,
yeah,
if anybody wants to go. Like, actually, we should talk because once we can get out again, I do like to kind of do day trips and, overnight, like weekend trips and stuff, maybe a couple hundred miles
York,
away.
Pennsylvania, not that far away from Hershey, Pennsylvania. Hershey, Pennsylvania is awesome.
Hershey.
Yes, I've toured the factory.
Nice.
Yes, you can take this little Willy Wonka style little ride through and it'll show you.
Nice.
And you get to eat a Hershey's Kiss right off the line, still hot.
Oh, man.
So good.
That'll be my next stop.
They have a restaurant in there where I ate a barbecue grilled chicken sandwich, but the barbecue sauce was made from Hershey's chocolate.
Oh my God.
And your first thought in your mind is, oh my God, that sounds so disgusting. No, it is not.
No, the first thing I thought was,
It is awesome. It is so awesome. But yeah, York, Pennsylvania, really, really old town. Like we're talking like Revolutionary War type old town. And I went to, I want to say this was probably October. It was late fall, a little bit of snow on the ground, really cold. Went into an old pub that still had like the cobblestone floor from, the colonial times.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I was drank beer, and they had like a cauldron on
awesome.
Like a fire, and they had like stew in it.
Dang.
And I ate stew from a cauldron over a fire.
Over a fire.
And drank beer. and it was amazing. York, Pennsylvania. John, have you ever been to that pub, man? I don't remember what it was called.
Yes, send us a comment. Let us know.
It was totally cool. John asks, why was Michelle Lee even being interviewed? It seemed like she didn't have much to add as far as actual facts of the case. And if Ranger Collins didn't care about Brandon being gay, why did they spend so much time talking about it?
That's the $1 million question, right? And I think that we explain pretty well how the being gay kind of plays into this case. We will definitely talk about it a lot more when we get into the actual trial. But, you know, the prosecution liked to pay lip service. Well, we didn't charge him because he was gay. We didn't convict him because he was gay. And even the jurors that I talked to, they all said, well, we didn't care if he was gay or not. But then I would turn around and ask him a question. Well, did it come across to you like Brandon was lying? Was he a liar? And they said, well, yeah, it seemed that way. And I'm like, what do you think he lied about? And their first response was, oh, I mean, he lied about being gay. And he was telling, you know, and it's like, so yeah, I understand it's not like, you know, the prosecution didn't just like parade around a rainbow flag and say, look, we need to convict this homo over here. It was more like they used the gay thing to make him out to be the most evil liar ever. And, you know, they just used that excuse, like, if you can lie about being gay, then you can lie about killing your parents. And, you know, every time I tell people that, they kind of wince like, no, there's no way that they could do that. But guess what, guys? When we get into the trial and we start talking about the last few interviews that Ranger Collins does, we will actually play several clips of Ranger Collins saying exactly that. You know, one of the ones that just pops into my mind was when he was interviewing Alex Ruley, the guy that Brandon went over to his house that night. He tells Ranger Collins tells Alex, you know, we don't really care if he's gay. I mean, we've heard about him being gay, but I mean, really, if he's hiding his sexuality, he can lie about killing his parents. And
well, and now that's something too, because he's telling us that no, I'm straight, I've got a girlfriend and all that, but we're hearing from friends, you know, that he is gay. Which, I mean, we don't care one way or another, but I mean, if you're going to lie about something little like that, then, you know, are you going to lie about something big? I mean, if you can lie something about your sexual orientation, then you ought to be able to lie about something big.
I mean, he told me that he was out, you know, his dad knew and everything else, and he had a good relationship with him and everything else like that. I mean,
you know, so it's not just like something that we're making up. This is fact. This is the way that these investigators thought. And as I pointed out in the episode, if every gay person that ever came out of the closet was to kill their parents, I mean, we would hardly have any parents left. So I don't know what got that into Ranger Collins's mind, but it just goes to show his mindset during the investigation. You know, in his mind, lying about being gay is apparently just one of the worst lies that you can tell, because he automatically makes that connection between lying about being gay and lying about killing your parents. You know, to me, that's like saying, well, I mean, if you can steal a candy bar from the convenience store, then you can definitely rape 3 women.
I can?
I don't know. Which one have you done?
I've definitely stolen a candy bar from the store before in my youth, but I do not have the want or need or the ability to rape 3 women. So we're going to put that one to rest right now.
So, but you see my point that, you know, that to me and to most people, I think lying about your sexuality is kind of when you're gay is a necessity until you get to the point where you're comfortable telling people that you're gay. And, you know, and like I said in the episode, again, all the gay people out there that are listening, you know how much BS that is. You know how you had to hide it from everybody. You know that you had to, you know, when people asked you about it, you had to deny it. And if they had, if you were at a gay club or something and they asked where you were last night, you made up something. Well, I went over to a friend's house for dinner. I mean, just it's none of their business. And that was Brandon's biggest point, was basically my sexuality was my business, and I didn't feel like I owed it to anybody to be truthful about that because I wasn't comfortable telling them about that, which makes a lot of sense. And I agree with that. And until the point where a gay person gets to be out and proud and doesn't matter who they tell, then that is, that's their individual choice to make up. And just the fact that Ranger Collins can equate those two quote unquote lies is just absolutely abhorrent.
Well, even 15 years ago in the state of Texas, horrible stoning offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here it is in the year 2020 in the state of Texas, horrible stoning offense. Nothing's changed, but changed some since 2005.
I mean, it's definitely like in the bigger cities, and even in 2005, honestly, if this would have been tried in Dallas County, I think that it would have been a different result.
Right.
Just because Dallas is a little more progressive. There are a lot more forward-minded people that wouldn't really care about his sexuality. But man, you get it in front of 12 homophobic jurors out in Hunt County and you're in trouble.
Right. But in the past 15 years, everybody has access to the internet. Everybody has access to social media. You have support groups. You have people you can talk to. You don't, well, I'm not in Dallas. You wouldn't have to hide.
Right.
In Hunt County, Texas, still to this day, I guarantee you, there are still people that have to hide their sexuality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It hurts my brain and my heart and my soul that Ranger Collins had this whole attitude going throughout the whole investigation. This is not something that was just kind of made up at trial. Ranger Collins used this belief in the whole investigation. And once he found out Brandon was gay and that he was hiding it, it was game over.
It's crazy that we're talking about this right now. My Facebook memory from 4 years ago.
I saw that.
Yeah, and this is the height of the transgender bathroom deal.
Yeah.
My Facebook memory from 4 years ago was posting a photograph of a letter that someone had gotten in their mailbox in Hunt County, Texas, from the Klan, from the KKK, condemning transgender people, and like right in the height of the bathroom controversy.
Right.
So I got a photograph of that. I put it on my Facebook. I'd almost forgotten about it until Facebook did that really cool thing where they're like, hey, remember 3 years ago you were dating this person? Or remember 4 years ago when this person like stabbed you in the heart with a fork and twisted it? You remember that? You remember that? You remember that. Facebook is very good at that. Well, that was my Facebook memory. I believe it was yesterday. My Facebook memory from yesterday was that. Hunt County, Texas.
Yep. I know we like to think that things are changing and getting better, but I haven't seen any evidence of it.
No, it's not. Racism is the same way, but that's another episode. That's probably a next season episode. We'll save that for next season.
That's right.
All right. We have a comment. We're going to end out on a comment here. Christopher from YouTube. No city, just YouTube. Christopher from YouTube.
He lives in YouTube.
Yeah, he lives in YouTube. him and Pootie Pie or whatever that dude's name is. He says, or he comments actually, this whole arrest warrant is another Jody Arias.
Oh, we should explain that this was actually for episode 11.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right.
He commented after we recorded our Q&A episode, but it's a very poignant comment that I think that a lot of people need to hear. So this is actually about last episode.
Yes, Christopher with no last name from the city of YouTube.
The city of YouTube.
And he was a little late to the party. Either that or we were a little late reading it. One of the two. 50-50.
Well,
right down the
people
middle.
are busy these days.
Yes,
people are take time to.
People are busy. But he says, this whole arrest warrant is another Jody Arias case in which everything is based on word of mouth without proof of any evidence. Jody claimed that the ex-boyfriend she stabbed and killed was a pedophile. Yet after the police went through that house and computer thoroughly, they found nothing pointing in that direction. That's character assassination. The part where the ranger should be severely reprimanded and suspended is the part where he failed to thoroughly investigate all of the avenues and believe things based on an individual who has daddy issues and mental problems and trusted that individual's account over Brandon's account. What if it was the sister who killed the parents? A woman can kill with as much or more viciousness as a man. Jodi Arias is proof of that. Don't judge a book by its cover.
That is absolutely correct. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to put it in, is he's absolutely correct. I mean, and that's exactly what happened in Jodi's case was, you know, at first she tried to deny that she even did it. I mean, we don't need to go off on other cases, but there's other podcasts that cover the Jodi Arias case. But just to sum it up for everybody, this lady lived in Utah, and her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend lived in Arizona. And she actually drove like 200. I think we actually mentioned Jodi Arias's case in one of our episodes.
I think you're right. I think we did.
Yeah, and she drove several hundred miles to go meet him for sex, basically, and ended up killing him. And then at first she tried to deny that she was even there. Then once they were able to forensically prove that she was there, then it became exactly what Christopher said, is a character assassination. Is, oh, well, he was a pedophile and I had to kill him, and he was trying, and then it was like something like he was trying to rape me and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just a bunch of crap that she made up. But that's exactly what she did. She drug his name through the mud. And all of the investigation that the police were able to do showed none of that. Showed that he was actually a pretty upstanding guy. He was part of the Mormon church. Like he was a good guy. And for her to drag his name through the mud like that, just to try to get off from a murder charge is, I mean, it was despicable. But that's exactly right. That's exactly what's going on in this case. Is everybody's sitting there, everybody that's coming in, as far as I guess we haven't gotten to Mike's interview yet, but
it's coming.
It's coming. But the people that Charla has already had an interview, so we can talk about her. Since we've covered that one already. And that's exactly it. You know, she tries to say that he's abusive, her dad was abusive, and Brandon took after him, and that was actually used in the arrest warrant. So stuff like that, number one, it has no reason or any place in an arrest affidavit, number one. Number two, you're exactly right, Christopher. Why are they taking Charla's word over Brandon when, other than the fact that they believe that Brandon, killed his parents? So in their minds, they're like, well, why wouldn't I believe somebody that has psychiatric issues over somebody that killed both of his parents? So that's kind of their thinking. But Brandon, honestly, as we've covered, just gave them no reason for that. It's not like Brandon said, it's one thing, I believe it would have been one thing if Brandon would have said, you know what, Ranger Collins, I left the Heath house at 8:00, and I know I left at 8:00 because my watch said 8:00 straight up. And every time 8:00 news story comes on or whatever, like I know that it's 8:00 and that's exactly when I left. I mean, that would be one thing, because then it'd be like, okay, well, this guy's, we know he wasn't leaving at 8 and he's being pretty adamant about that. But the exact opposite happened. Brandon told him several times throughout the interview that he was not sure about the times. He was just trying to do the best that he could, that he was trying to help them out. And, if it would have been a non-biased investigator, and this is coming not from me, but this is coming from all of the investigators that I've talked to about this case, that if it would have been a non-biased investigator, their first reaction would be like, we should go back and look at your phone records. We should go back and talk to your, why don't you call your buddy right now and see what time he says you were over there? Why couldn't you do more investigation before you just, turn right around and say, okay, well, this guy lied to me one time about one time that he was at the Heath house, so obviously he's a cold-blooded killer. It makes no sense. And the character assassination, Christopher's exactly right. All of this is just, especially when we get into Mike's episode, you guys are just gonna, your mouths are gonna drop the second that interview or that episode starts, and you're not gonna pick it up off the floor until we finish with his interview. It's crazy.
Oh, Christopher, thank you very much for the comment. Thank you very much for listening. We hope you keep it up. All right, those are our questions and comments for episode 12. We're going to take a little break, guys. We're going to be away for about 3 weeks. No new episodes for 3 weeks. This is going to give you a lot of time to run around to all your friends and go, dude, you got to check this podcast out. Yeah, you got this time now to catch up, to spread the word, because when we come back from our little 3-week hiatus, we're coming back with a vengeance.
Yep. We're going to hit the ground running. And that'll definitely have you time to catch up on the 12 episodes. But I do have another announcement, and I haven't even shared this with you yet. I've been talking.
I never would have guessed you've been talking.
That's walking. I've been walking.
After midnight.
Okay. I've been talking to a couple other podcast hosts. And apparently there's this thing in the podcast community where it's like, you know what? I'll be on your show and then you can be on my show and then we'll cross promote each other's podcast.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
Exactly.
In the podcast community.
Only in the podcast community. And so I've been talking to a couple of them. So we may do release some videos in that 3-week hiatus of, me interviewing a different podcast host for just to learn a little bit about their podcast. It probably will be pretty short, 15, 20 minutes at the most, I would assume. But that might be some content that we can put up in the meantime. It doesn't take much to produce those, just kind of 2 guys talking or 2 guy and a girl talking or whatever, back and forth for a few minutes. So we might be able to put some of that stuff up. So keep watching our YouTube channel for the next 3 weeks. But yes, June 21st, we will get back and we will have everything you want to know about the interview of Michael Etherington.
Dun, dun, dun. We're going to come back from this 3-week hiatus.
3 weeks.
With episode 13.
Episode 13. And this one you guys will not want to miss. This is the one I've literally had dozens of people asking me, when are you going to cover Mike's interview? And this is the one that you will not want to miss, because we are going to cover I don't want to say every word, but we're going to cover every lie.
We can't cover every word, because every other word is e u o There's a lot of back paddling, like when you're going down the river, you see, or maybe you've never been down a river. I've been down several rivers, but you see the character in the film that's down the river, and they see the waterfall a little bit too late,
and exactly.
That how they behave when they see the waterfall, almost swimming. A little. Yeah, it's back paddle, back paddle, back paddle, back paddle. Yeah,
there's a lot of that.
Like 190 pages of back paddling.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, total shit show.
It is a shit show, and that's the problem that I think Mike has with me and the podcast, is that we do cover all of the stuff that he says that's not true and that can be proven as not true, and we are going to bring every single bit of it to you, the listener/viewer.
I mean, it was filmed, it was recorded, it's on the record.
There's no backpedaling.
Nope, not a bit. I mean, it's seriously shit show. Like, we're talking corner of your grandfather's backyard where every dog he ever owned did his business. Shit show.
That's
you
right.
Never, as a kid, you never walked into that corner because you knew the grass was just a little bit greener than it was everywhere else in that corner. And you knew not to go there because you're going to have to wash your shoes off. That's how big of a shit show it is.
Okay. Well, we will definitely cover it. And I'm not even sure that we'll be able to contain it in 1, 2, or... Well, we'll definitely contain it in 3 episodes, but maybe 2.
I think if I cut out all the,
BS.
Anyway, come back in 3 weeks. You're really going to enjoy this.
Yes, for sure.
All right, guys, that does it for the Q&A edition of episode 12. I am your host, C. Derick Miller. You can find out more about me at cderickmiller.com. I got a couple of new books available. You can also catch me every week on the Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast, where we introduce you to an indie author, read you the first chapter, and then leave it up to you, the listener, to determine whether or not you would like to finish the book by purchasing a copy, reading it yourself. I'm not an audiobook service, people. I don't do that.
I know I can say that I've listened to a few of those, and when you're reading the first, it's so funny because I don't know if you stop halfway through or if I just get so enthralled in it, but like you'll stop reading and I'm like, was that the end of the chapter? Like, what's going on? Like, I want to know what's going on.
And that's where Amazon comes in.
There you go. Exactly.
Give me my check, Amazon. All right. You can find out more about the Brandon Woodruff case and the upcoming documentary at freebrandon.org. Don't forget, you can ask us questions. This is an interactive podcast. You can email them. You can comment on social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. But most importantly, and the one we like the most, you can actually call us. Remember phones?
Yes.
Remember using your voice to communicate with people?
Yes.
Totally awesome thing. I hear it's new. You can call us at 972-942-0444 and ask a question. Give us permission to use your voice on this podcast, and we will play your voice.
Yes. So, Chad.
Yes.
What should our listeners do for the next 3 weeks?
They should sit on pins and needles. No, they should spread the word. They should introduce this podcast to all their friends, tie them up in the basement, make them listen to them all.
I was going to say they should stay aware, stay strong,
and get involved.
That's right. See you 3 weeks.
The American Justice Podcast is owned and copyrighted by Atua Productions, LLC. Your host is Scott Pogensey, and your writer is C. Derick Miller. The theme music for the American Justice Podcast has been created and composed by Josh DeRosa. Scripted and recorded episodes are published every Sunday morning, with follow-up Q&A episodes released on Fridays. You can find the Q&A episodes on YouTube by searching for American Justice Podcast. Atua Productions aims for this to be an interactive podcast where you, the audience, has a great amount of influence on the content of our shows. You can interact with us in several ways. First, and most preferred, is you can leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 972-942-0444. Be sure to leave your name and the city you're calling from, along with whether or not we can use your voice on the air. If Facebook is more your style, you can log on to our Facebook page at facebook.com/American Justice Podcast. Feel free to leave a comment, or you can message us on Messenger if you have a more pressing question or issue. If you would like to blog about the show, then you can log on to AmericanJusticePodcast.com and tell us what you think there. If you are a tweeter, you can also voice your opinion on Twitter at AJusticePodcast. If you would like to support the show, you can do so in a couple different ways. First, consider visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/AJPodcast. We have different levels of support that include t-shirts, guest call-in spots, and early access to our podcast and YouTube shows. Next, you can like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get notifications of when we publish episodes. We would also very much appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review. If you have any comments about the show, or more importantly, any tips on the case we're discussing, please call 972-942-0444 and leave us a message. After all, if the subject of our podcast is innocent, that means someone out there is guilty. American Justice Army? Let's find them.
Let's go right out the gate this week. Right out the gate. Let's go with the question. The question. Debbie from Plano.
Debbie from Plano. Where have you been my whole life?
Debbie, we need to cue Debbie's theme music.
Oh yes,
Debbie from Plano has her own theme music.
All right, are we ready?
Be careful what's on your personal laptop when you open it in front of other people. Lesson learned. You don't want to know.
I guess that, so, it's a funny story. I finally...
We're laughing, it must be.
I'm not telling this story. This will be edited out, but just for your information.
Thank you, Debbie from Plano.
That was a really good album from Green Day.
Yeah, it is. That was a great album. I remember I had it on cassette. I had it on cassette in the time of CDs.
How many rings do you have around your
I know. I know you have to cut off my head and count the rings.
Yeah, how many rings do you have around your trunk?
I had that on cassette tape in the time of CDs. I refused to upgrade.
Wow. Really?
I refused to upgrade until I guess it was until I got into the military and went to the PX to buy some music and realized they didn't sell cassette tapes anymore. So I had
kind of forced into it.
Yeah, I was forced into buying a CD player.
Now they hardly even sell CDs anymore.
I know. It's crazy. All right. Thank you, Debbie from Plano.
Thank you, Debbie.
And thank you for that trip down memory lane, Scott. Okay.